Being a plant means that where your seed is sown is where you're probably going to remain for the rest of your life. But with this disadvantage of immobility comes some of nature's perks, adaptability. For thousands if not millions of years, plants have been evolving to better protect themselves against a wide selection of abiotic stressors, pathogens, and insects. By developing some sort of memory system, a plant can remember particularly stressful incidents and store this in their memory. Using this memory system, the plant can control its response to a pathogen or a herbivore, also known as defense priming. But could they pass this memory onto the next generation? It would be advantageous after all, recalling that Darwin's survival of the fittest defined not just by who can survive, but whose offspring can survive to produce more and more offspring. One key point that has been unearthed is the discovery of the function of the epigenetic mechanisms. It's been revealed that these mechanisms regulate gene expressions through small RNAs, histone modifications, and DNA methylation. These are inherited through mitotic cell divisions, and in some cases can be somehow transmitted to the next generation. The somehow here is important, and as of yet scientists do not fully understand the way in which memory is passed on to future generations. But we know it exists, and here is the proof. 200 genetically identical Arabidopsis thaliana plants were bred into two lines. 100 were grown in 30 degrees, and the other remaining 100 in 16-degree temperatures, and followed over 4 generations. When mature, the seeds were collected and the offspring were grown into the same temperature. The next progeny, however, were grown at normal temperatures, at 23 degrees, midway between hot and cold. This key step would show whether plants could actively store memory from their predecessors when necessary. It's sort of like you being able to tap into your grandparents' memories to deal with the situations that even your parents didn't go through. Sure enough, the F3 generation that were historically exposed to heat treatments experienced higher levels of fitness and better development traits, with increased height, rosette diameter, and flowers and seeds. We understand that it exists, but we don't know how. But why should we care? Because in the face of climate change, plant growth and crop yields will be harder to maintain. We need to find a way to ensure that things can keep on living sustainably, no matter what the environment is.
A new discovery of plant-plant communication in response to herbivorous attacks has linked the release of chemical volatiles to useful signals or cues received by neighboring plants, as well as the prey of the destructive herbivores. This chemical, rather than physical advantage, has evolved in response to their inability to run from prey, as humans might from a snake. All undamaged plants contain baseline levels of volatile metabolites stored in chemical reserves on the surface of leaves known as peltate glands. These volatiles are made up of monoterpenes, aromatics, and other fatty acid derivatives. In some cases, these volatile organic compounds, also referred to as VOCs, are synthesized immediately, and in other cases, hours or days following attack. In saying this, VOCs have been found to act in two ways. The first is to prime neighbors to emit the same or similar volatiles to minimize potential future damage, known as plant-plant communication. And the second is to attract the predators of herbivores, known as plant-prey communication. Experiments pertaining to the existence and success of plant-plant communication has focused on sagebrush and its ability to prime nearby plants of differing species when damaged. Tomato and tobacco were incubated with clipped sagebrush, imitating destruction of the peltate glands that store VOCs. Both were successful in demonstrating the existence of interplant species communication. In tomato plants, the accumulation of the proteinase inhibitor, methyl jasmonate, a defensive chemical compound, was evident. Likewise, in tobacco, enhanced levels of polyphenol oxidase, known as PPO, a chemical marker of induced resistance, surfaced. Now, onto the communication between plants and their friendly parasitic saviors who are called upon in times of stress. Several Lepidoptera species, such as moths and butterflies, which regularly feed off both corn and cotton plants, are attacked by Hymenopterous parasites attracted through the release of defensive chemical compounds. Further studies involving the apple plant and lima bean have also demonstrated that with the attack of spider mites comes the release of volatiles responsible for attracting predatory mites. These predatory mites attack and deter the spider mites from causing further damage. However, research regarding plant-plant communication remains a fairly new and unexplored topic. Questions pertaining to the validity of lab experiments prevail because they are conducted in extremely controlled environments, unlike what happens in real life. More doubts exist about whether volatiles can operate over distances great enough to have any kind of significant ecological impact. There is also uncertainty about whether VOCs are released simply as a response rather than a means of improving the livelihood of their neighboring plants. In saying this, all believe plant communication is a topic deserving of attention, as the manipulation of plant-plant and plant-pest defense means that farmers of the future all around the world can rely less on harmful and costly pesticides and devote their focus on developing plants trained to protect themselves and their kin.
Most people know that plants are able to anchor themselves in the ground and obtain nutrients from the soil environment due to their root system. But did you know that there are also special fungal networks that latch themselves to the ends of these roots? These fungal networks, known as arbuscular mycorrhizas, AM for short, are found in over 80% of terrestrial plants and act like an extension to the primary root system. The plant and the fungi share a symbiotic relationship. The AM fungi helps the plant acquire extra nutrients and enhances the plant's tolerance against abiotic stresses, such as threats of drought and salinity. In return, the plant provides sugars for the next AM fungi. But how does all of this relate to plant and plant communications? Extra radical hyphae from AM fungi are not limited to forming symbiosis with one plant, but are also able to link to numerous plant roots. These networks are known as common mycorrhizal networks, CMNs, and have been known to assist in the sharing of food and nutrients.
An experiment was conducted on a group of tomato plants. One was sprayed with Alternaria solani, a fungal pathogen which leads to premature rotting of the fruit and leaves. The remaining plants were sealed with an airtight bag, preventing above-ground communication. Yet somehow, the sealed plants knew to protect themselves by activating 6 defense-related genes. Increased activity of defensive enzymes, such as peroxidase and polyphenol oxidase, was also recorded. This suggests that plants can communicate below ground, probably facilitated by CMN as explained before. However, we still don't know whether the injured plant is deliberately warning its neighbours of imminent danger, or if the plants are just using these fungal networks to eavesdrop on each other. Biologists have long accepted that diverse animal species have evolved ways to recognize and interact with other members of their species to enhance their survival. Wouldn't it be exciting to think that plants also have this ability? After all, they have been around much longer than us, and it has been established that plant-plant communication does exist through the transmission of airborne VOCs as well as signals through the rhizosphere. If plants were able to differentiate related and non-related species and therefore allocate their nutrients and resources more efficiently, this could have important implications in agriculture, especially with regards to intercropping. Thus, we can begin to understand how plant interactions influence whole plant behavior in the field. Plants today are the basis of products attached to billion-dollar industries, including medicine, cosmetics, soaps, rubber, plastics, wood, and other textiles. Once aware of the significance that plants have in society, it is easy to see how understanding the mechanisms behind their survival and longevity would be of interest to scientists all around the world. Further studies are essential to protecting both food and goods supply, and create endless opportunities of developing highly resistant, genetically modified plant species.